Okay, I woke up to a fantastic insider trading scandal conspiracy theory brewing right away. Some mainstream YouTubers of ours are actually reporting on some stuff we deal with over here on this channel every single day. So I was like, all right, let's check this out.
Potential mystery that is quite interesting.
This is crazy.
Crazy, has huge implications. And that, by the way, the White House is totally downplaying. So we had, let's go ahead and put this up on the screen. The Consumer Price Index data came out, okay? It was released at 8:30. At 8:29, 1 minute before that data ultimately dropped, there were huge market moves. So you can see that on this chart. The giant spike there that you see in the markets going way up, that spike happens between 8:29 and 8:30. So again, that inflation data, which showed sort of lower than expected inflation, which was, you know, people took as a really good sign, took as a sign, oh, the Fed is not going to continue to hike rates. This is going to be good for us. That data drops at 8:30 and the market is already moved most of what it's going to do at 8:29. Okay, the White House, they say, brushed off those concerns.
Okay, so right away when I see this report, I immediately write up a comment to these guys and I say, no guys, this is regular old market mechanic moves. They happen at different times over an interval because there's a delay within that minute of when different exchanges from around the world are plugging in the data from the new calculation. But then they continue, right?
Over a leak of this information, calling it minor market movements, but stock and treasury futures made major moves. So basically the allegation is these people knew what was coming. Somehow they got tipped off to this information that should not have been public to everybody until 8:30. Because of course, if you get a jump on that data, well, you're in a position to cheat.
But okay, yes, let's go ahead and dive in. But you can see here on their video that it's highlighting the Bloomberg chart. So let's go ahead and bring up the actual article and the image from it. You can see right there that right between 8:29 and 8:30, you see this blip, and then slowly all the rest of the data gets recalculated in and boom, 8:30 hits. Okay, this data isn't such a secret, okay? This data is calculating the November CPI, and it was released on the 13th of December. That's when this occurred. So most companies that care already know what it's going to be. So this was about as far into the video as I made it, and I'm like, oh, guys, oh, Saga, Crystal, you guys are cool. I dig you. It's all good. But let me go ahead and explain to you, this is just a regular old market mechanic move, right? And that was pretty much all I was going to leave it at, and make that little comment and then move on to another video. But then I saw it gets a lot deeper, and they got a lot more heated, and I realized there's a lot more teeth to people believing this, which is why I'm making this video, just to debunk every aspect of what's being said here. I'm like a big fan of any good conspiracy fact as any other one, but it has to be a fact for it to work out that way. This one just doesn't have teeth. I'll explain why. So let's get back to the video. This is what I watched after I posted the comment, and I was like, nah, that's good. Yeah, you know, let those guys know. And I'll probably do a little 1-minute video tomorrow morning just explaining, nope, it's not this. And things got a little bit more heated.
We're in a position to have forward knowledge that is not supposed to be public and be able to benefit from that in advance. So how do you explain the fact that there were thousands of moves made before this data officially releases? Let's put the next piece up on the screen. This is from Bloomberg. This is about, you know, the White House is dismissing these moves, but just to give you a sense of how significant
this is when I realized this is when I realized that Crystal and Saga are just reporting on a Bloomberg piece, and then I'm like, Bloomberg is reporting a piece like this. How salacious. Most people at Bloomberg, you would expect they understood general market mechanics and that they wouldn't leak something like this. Okay, so now I'm not disappointed with Crystal and Saga anymore, and now I'm going over to Bloomberg and wondering who the heck are these bozos writing these articles about this. All right, people, so I decided to bring up the charts and see if I could really kind of match this out with some volume and see if it hold any teeth in terms of the actual volume, because what she claims is that there was a significant amount of futures contracts traded during that time. So we want to take a look. And as I looked into my charting system here, I noticed that, you know, this is on the 15-second chart, so it's a little bit more zoomed in than what we had detailed. At 8:29, there was 0 significant activity. If anything, there was more significant activity happening back here at 8:26:45, where some volume spittled in right there. Now, this is most certainly somebody who had a tip about what was going on, one sense or the other, regarding this move. Again, the CPI data was 13 days later than the data was created, and there's plenty of ways that they can get their own version of the calculation without needing the official number to know where it's headed. Now, why wouldn't they trade earlier? Well, the answer is that's what they do when the data really does leak. And that's what I can tell the difference between this not being a leak. We're going to go into that right after this as well, and you're going to see what a real CPI leak looks like. So, okay, check this out. So within this 1 minute, we've got 4 candlesticks within that on the 15-second chart. This one, very little volume. Okay, 8:29:15, very little volume. This coincides with the Bloomberg chart very well, okay? Again, very little volume. You see this little spot down here? You know, that's the volume candles. All right, and that's what you want to be specifically looking at when we're talking about the volume on this move directed at SPY. But this was, you know, a market-wide move. Everything across the board moved like that. Okay, now we have 8:29:45. See a significant bounce up coming in right here. All right, that also goes right in line with the Bloomberg chart from there. And then here at 8:30, you see the official run up all the way to 414.10 on the SPY during that morning. Okay, this is a typical move when CPI happens, and I'll explain to you why. It's very, very simple when you take a look at it. Here, let's bounce back on over to the browser right here. And what I did was I just made a simple Excel spreadsheet, you know, template, grabbed one up really quick to use as a quick example of what happens. Okay, so every time a CPI print comes in, it recalculates the value of everything. All right, why? A lot of the values are based on the dollar and the dollar's value. So if you have inflation on the dollar, that's a liability to the value of the dollar. If you take that liability and lessen it, it will change that calculation. What happens once the currencies get reevaluated? Well, then all of the commodities get reevaluated. All right, that happens in a different exchange. All right, from the commodities, you also have the whole bond market get reevaluated in its pricing. At the same time, you also have the equity market getting its reevaluation across the whole market. All right, now this is happening globally. This is happening at every different country's markets, exchanges, the commodities exchanges, the futures exchanges, everything else coming all in at once. So the futures contracts are a lot that has to do with all the commodities that we buy and sell and trade across the entire supply chain. Okay, so just very, very quickly, what's happening right there in that minute, that 8:29 to, 8:30, which Bloomberg was obviously being clickbaity and salacious when they put 60 seconds, like it's the Gone in 60 Seconds movie. If they put 28 seconds before the CPI data, it wouldn't have had the same kind of clickbaity bite to it, would it? So they had to really make it 60 seconds and bang, all this volume came in, the most volume. And they even claim in the article there's more volume coming in during that time than we see in an entire session. That's not true. It was a significant price gap, but that's because there's a change in a calculation. Okay, so CPI was 7.7. All right, so let's say the US dollar index at any given moment was at 105.23. Go on in here, just like anybody else who runs an Excel spreadsheet, right? You go ahead and change that number from the 7.7 over to the 7.1, all right? Currently, the cost of inflation on that dollar index is $8.10. Okay, now, what's happening in that minute? Every computer system all across the world, across all the different exchanges, are punching in this 7.1 into the 7.7, hitting enter, and then boom, 7.47. That's the new cost of inflation on the dollar. Now, this trickles throughout all the systems across the whole world that have to digitally connect to each other and reevaluate, all have to flood in through the Bloomberg system hardwire line and then pump that data out. If you don't think sometimes somebody's computer's 15 seconds different timing when they hit enter versus somebody else's clock who's set in another part of the world with a 15-second difference, if you don't add those all up, each one of those different hardware systems, the infrastructure of each one of those exchanges, they could have a timing off by seconds here, there, and that's how the data is rolling in that data, rolling in that data, rolling in. So nonetheless, it's extremely irresponsible for somebody from Bloomberg to be reporting like this, because of course, if it's on Bloomberg, it's going to run rampant across the entire internet, because this is what most of our stock followers will be quoting when we quote anything is Bloomberg. So it's salacious. It's meant to grab headlines away from the obvious truth, which was that if you want to call this insider trading, there's a pretty bad job of it, okay? So why don't we just go ahead and take a look at what happened during that day, okay? So one of the things we can confirm about this particular trade is that this was not short covering, because the volume wasn't there. You know how I know the volume wasn't there? You see these volume candles right here? This is pre-market volume candles, okay? It looks significant. Why don't you see those volume candles as the real volume in the market kicks in? So here we go, everybody, pulling out to the 1 hour chart to zoom in the volume to get some perspective on what actually occurred within this minute. This is the 1 hour candle during that time. And you can see this is the big spike up. This is the amount of volume that was representing at that time, okay? This is the typical volume on any given day trading on the SPY. Okay, these are the volume candles for that. Significantly higher than any of the move that we got in the morning. Now, that being said, the move that we got in the morning was significantly higher than any other move we saw the rest of the day with all of that volume. So why is that not suspicious? Again, it goes back to the calculation. This was repricing the value of everything we invest in across the whole world at the same time. Let's see what else Saga and Crystal have to say.
Are downplaying as being minor. Stock futures suddenly spiked more than 1%. Trading in Treasury futures surged, pushing benchmark yields lower by about 4 basis points. Those are major moves in such a short period of time, bigger than full session swings on plenty of days. People are saying regulators really need to look into this. To give you a few more specifics here, over that 60-second span, between 8:29 and 8:30, over 13,000 March 10-year futures traded hands during a period when activity is usually non-existent. So 13,000 futures traded hands, when normally that number would have been pretty close to zero. So listen, somehow they got word of this beforehand. That is certainly what it looks like. They asked the agency that puts out this information, and what they said, Sagar, is like, listen, to our knowledge, there was no leak, but by law or by regulation, we have to distribute this info to a variety of government officials. So the idea is, somebody's getting paid to give out this information early, or they're having somebody buy for them ahead of time so that they're able to get a jump on the information too. But somehow the word got out. There is just no other explanation for this. What bothers me is actually the lack of media scrutiny.
Oh, there definitely is another explanation for this, for sure, Crystal. Unfortunately, especially the volume aspect doesn't really hold up. Now, the tip-off aspect and everything like that, that's an interesting theory. If it was a tip-off, it wasn't going to happen at the last minute of this moment. That's not when the tip-offs happen. Do you know why I know?
Dude, thanks for the beat, brother. What's up, beautiful people? This is Pope with Stock Doc the Traded.
Hey, handsome.
I just coming out taking my dog for a walk after a hell of a day trading the market the day before. The CPI released tomorrow, 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I gotta tell you guys, we have some things to talk about, all right? There's just really too much for me to put any sort of like formatted video together or anything like that. I just wanted to go take you guys for a walk from the market before. And it was a long time ago. Okay, so.
All right, so don't need to get into that. That's just me like wheeling and dealing, rocking and blocking, living the lifestyle. But you can see that's posted on July 12th, where I was explaining just before the CPI data got released, we had a pullback there. All right, so let's bounce on over to the charts. Okay, so what we want to do now here is we're going to zoom on out to the one-day chart. We're going to bring ourselves all the way back to the July.
Scrutiny on this. So I actually recall a really crazy example was when Trump was president. So the president by law actually gets the BLS numbers early. And he tweeted something where he was like, big news coming tomorrow, very good, which traders could have assumed was the BLS data,
Yeah.
and they were trading based upon that information. A lot of people freaked out because they were like, well, oh my gosh, like Trump is violating the sacrosanct principle that we should keep these numbers secret up until the day of. Well, look, there's only a couple of people who get this info. The White House Chief of Staff, the President, Secretary of the Treasury, the Labor Secretary, and then presumably whoever the guy is who brings the folder over to the White House. One of them talked. Listen, 13,000 futures, 1% rally. It doesn't happen.
Yeah.
These people, you think they're gamble multi-billion dollars based upon nothing? They're not that stupid. They know what they're doing.
No, they don't. I mean, of course, but
and so
this isn't like a mystery number, people. It's really not.
And I think it's insane that the White House is not attacking this because here's the thing. Maybe it wasn't Biden, but maybe it was. Maybe he was on the phone.
Oh, yeah. It was Biden waking up in the middle of the night with his nightie. Okay, we're on the charts now, so we've got it. So you can take a look right here. Oh, I'm on the wrong screen here. Let me get this back on. All right, here we are. All right. So what I was referencing in that video there is the CPI data leaked the day before. This is what a data leak looks like. This is what a CPI data leak is to the stock market. All right, you can see the huge boom boom candle that we had in the morning. This is the 9 o'clock the next day on July, right? We saw a range of as much as 385 all the way down to 372. Huge gap, very similar to the big gap we had here, right? That all happened this day. The leak didn't happen in this hour. You can see, look at, this is the volume again. You can see what's similar. The volume is the same thing as just recently. Just a little bit of volume made one of the largest spikes you've ever seen. That's typical. That's what the recalculation is all about. All right, and these are the volume. The issue with this in July was on the 12th, right here around 2:30, this candle right here, this was the leak. It happened the day before, and this was significant, and a lot of people made money and ran on that. All right, so I'm not one of those people who's going to sit around and tell you that the market isn't manipulated. No, I know the market's manipulated. I know that better than most people. And that's why I thought I would come in and have a comment about this, because I'm probably more qualified than those guys, those beautiful cats and kittens over there, Saga and Crystal, to just actually comment on the market mechanics of this. If it was insider data or leaked trading, you better believe Stock Doc, the trader, would be right on the case with you. I guarantee it. It's just, that's not the case, right? You know, I like to stick to the conspiracy facts more than the theories. This one isn't correct. It doesn't have the water, and I wanted to nip it in the bud before it gets too far ahead. Yes, market manipulation exists. Yes, it exists every single day. And let me show you how. This is just yesterday's pre-market, okay? Every single day, the stock market reprices. Just like pushing that new digit on the Excel spreadsheet, it recalculates and it gaps, either up, down by a little bit, a lot of bit, or not a bit at all. Okay, this was the last time. Now, if we were going to use those theories to explain market manipulation here, you would say that market manipulation occurs every single morning. And yeah, it probably does in a sense. But what's really occurring is that during the gap between the after hours and the pre-market, there are other countries with stock markets and currencies and tradings and valuations, and those are changing. The Forex market, for example, is a 24-hour system, just like cryptocurrency. Okay, as those things are trading, as earnings are coming out in other countries, they are creating value differentiations between the dollar, US equities, foreign equities, currencies, commodities, bonds, the entire range. All right, so then every morning when we wake up, the number that gets first punched in the morning, that's a new number with a big old gap. And yeah, some people know what that gap's going to be. And yes, they do play that gap. And they mostly use dark pools to do it. In using a dark pool to do it, you're not going to see the volume. You're not going to see the trade, and you're not going to see the price move, okay? The number one red flag with this particular conspiracy thought was that this was being done in a lit market for the CPI data. So it wouldn't have been leaked like that. So you see, every single day we deal with this particular market mechanic that occurs. And it occurs when economic data comes out as well. It's not always just a bunch of people buying and selling within that same minute. Exactly. That's happening. You can tell how much that's happening by the volume candles, and that's what you want to look at here. And unfortunately, this one just doesn't have teeth. I don't blame Crystal and Saga for this one because, you know, Bloomberg reported it, and they made it salacious with their clickbaity "Gone in 60 Seconds" title, which is ridiculous. It's very important for us to stick to the facts when we're trying to call out things like market manipulation, right? Because if we're wrong, it makes us take a significant step back. And yeah, of course, market manipulation is happening every single day in the stock market. We know that. But this particular article, this particular headline, "Gone in 60 seconds, just ain't what it is, people. Well, anyways, keep block rocking your stocks, beautiful people. If you found this helpful, make sure you share it with your friends before this theory gets a little too out of control and so all of a sudden we start seeing it on the Qs. And I don't mean the NASDAQ. If you have any questions about how this mechanic works in more detail, go ahead and leave a comment below. I'll be happy to answer. All right. Peace.